Now it is time to resume the session. We would now like to start session number 3. The session will be moderated by Serizawa of RRI. In session 3, we will be discussing the collaboration between Japan and Germany. Industry 4.0 and RRI joint statement was the basis for the promotion of the expert discussion, which will be reported at this session. Before doing so, we would like to receive some words from the both governments. First, from METI, we will be receiving the speaker from METI, Mr. Suga, who was not able to make himself available. Principal Deputy Director, Manufacturing Industry Strategy Office and Industry Bureau, METI. On his behalf, Mr. Majima will be reading his notes. Thank you very much. I am Majima of METI. On the occasion of the opening of the third session, I would like to deliver the message of Suga Chizuru. Today, congratulations on the occasion of the successful organization of this event, and thank you very much for your attendance to this event. Dr. Hess of Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action and other experts are warmly welcomed again to this meeting. I would also like to take this opportunity to express our heartfelt appreciation to everyone at RRI. SDGs was signed 10 years ago at the United Nations, during which period social innovation for sustainable society has seen the conclusion of sustainability-related initiatives. Manufacturing industry, through IoT usage, have been a driver in this initiative, at the same time promoting business transformation for its further development. This year's symposium is having a theme of call for action manufacturing transformation towards social innovation. Globalizing manufacturing industry is taking a bold steps to face up to the global challenges, which in turn demands international collaboration. Today, we have looked into sustainability as well as interoperability of information sharing. The third session is the expert session. Digital product passport, trust business model, and digital space for manufacturing are the areas where experts will make their contributions and interventions. I truly hope that this session will prove to be a worthwhile experience in their quest for the achievement of sustainable society. And with this, I would like to conclude my remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Majima. Next up, we will hear from Mr. Hess from the German Ministry of Economics and Culture, Climate Protection. So, Mr. Hess, please.
Dear Majima-san, please extend our warmest regards to Mrs. Suga. Thank you for your intervention. Dear Kimura-san, Nakatomi-san, ladies and gentlemen, minasama, I want to thank the RRI for inviting me to give a keynote on today's Japan-German Expert Forum. The Platform Industry 4.0 and the RRI worked on so many topics in the last years. I'm grateful for the high quality and meaningful contributions to drive the topics forward. Japan partners became reliable and trusted for the German companies. Trust is of the essence, as we all know. And this year, I'm in Tokyo with the largest German delegation ever. Thank you very much for hosting us. This shows the interest to exchange on the topics, but also in cooperation with Japan and internationally. Since 2016, the successful German-Japan cooperation has mostly focused on the topics of cybersecurity, international standardization, and digital business models. It aims to promote Industry 4.0 to small enterprises, shared best practices on work, education and training, and supported several research projects. In addition to the expert groups, important pillars of the cooperation are the annual German-Japanese Business Forum at Hannover Fair, as well as mutual involvement in important events of the two platforms. Today, we are all committed to drive the digital transformation of our societies and industries. Key role will be the digitalization of global value chains as one of the key enablers for more competitive, resilient, and climate-neutral economy. Industrial supply chains and value networks do not end at sectoral or national borders. A broad approach is therefore required. The creation of industrial data ecosystems is a key development step. It will serve as foundation to transform industry across all sectors, as you can see on the chart. Artificial intelligence can serve as an example for a multi-sectoral approach. Solutions for industrialized large-scale AI applications need a secure and trusted environment for pre- and post-training. However, technologies like AI need to have access to a vast amount of high-qualitative data from different data owners. And secondly, access to sufficient compute and storage capacities. This, to my understanding, highlights the importance and needs of industrial data ecosystems in combination with sovereign digital infrastructure. The German government understands the necessity to incentivize and support the development of industrial data ecosystems in different sectors. We were able to establish a comprehensive support framework that allows for implementation of sector-specific use cases. As example, I would like to highlight Catena X as the frontrunner on the chart marked in yellow, but also Factory X and Aerospace X and all the other projects shown on the chart. Most importantly, together with many EU and global partners, we have launched the International Manufacturing X initiative to drive the globalization across sectors. The aim is to connect digital value chains and high-value data across industries and countries, to set up of the regulatory frameworks and standards, to implement the global foundations for data-driven, resilient, sovereign, and climate-neutral production, to enable innovative value creation in an interoperable and sovereign data ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, the German industry is involved in these developments, and the federal government will make contributions to the successful development of the projects. But together, and only together, we will succeed if we are to join forces. Only together we can create the digital transformation based on our shared values. I wish you all a fruitful and successful forum today. Thank you for your attention. Arigato.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hess. Now we would like to move on to the presentations. In session 3, we have no time for Q&A. Therefore, if you have any questions about today's discussion, please go to the link on YouTube and go to the Q&A site, enter your question, affiliation, and your name in the name field. First, no, we are moving directly, rather, to the report from the International Standardization Expert Meeting. The title is Digital Passport, Circular Economy and Innovation. RRI, International Standardization Support Action Group, and ICE, Mr. Komoto will speak. Also from SPI 4.0, Mr. Gayko in Germany will speak. Please start.
So, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm Jens Gayko from the Standardization Council Industrie 4.0. This is a German initiative to coordinate all the standardization activities for Industry 4.0 in Germany, including digital product passport and data spaces. And since 2018, I'm active and have had several times the chance also to be active here in the Japanese-German cooperation. And I will give the presentation together with Komoto-san from AIST.
こんにちは、産総研の河本と申します。私も
Thank you very much. And Komoto from ICE. Since 2018, I had been a member of the standardization group. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Within German-Japan collaboration, we have since the beginning also a dialogue on standardization issues, because we recognized that IIoT or Industry 4.0 requires an unprecedented degree of system integration across border domains, hierarchy borders, and life cycle phases. And this requires also standardization work. So in the past years, we had studies on standardization and dissemination and discussed our future vision for smart manufacturing, including use case elaboration and substantive operation on asset-oriented information and function structuring. And of course, finally, the target is to have a harmonization and alignment of standards at the international level, namely at ISO and IEC level, and also at the relevant consortia standards, because in the end, we need all of them. Our presentation is structured into 10 areas. The overview is already given. Then I will give a background on the European regulation on the digital product passport and identify the requirements on the digital product passport DPP, and including utilization, what is DPP, and the initiatives involved in that. And then Komoto-san will take over the second part on the situation in Japan, towards the development of innovative DPP use cases and the focus of current activities, future work, and summary. In Europe, we see since 4 or 5 years growing interest in the so-called green and digital transformation. This was already mentioned in earlier presentations today. And in 2.5 years ago, in March 2022, a draft of a so-called eco-design requirements for sustainable product regulation was published. Acronym is ESPR. So if you look for more acronyms, you can use ESPR now on. So this draft was published and then discussed and commented, and since a few weeks it was adopted and is published. And this ESPR defines requirements for the digital product passport. And from 2027, the adoption of the DPP for selected products is expected. Here I have some slides. You can see they are copied from the European Commission directly. So this is material from EU Commission to explain what is the DPP. So DPP is an integral part of this ESPR and with the same adoption timeline and future work program for priority products. And it has also a timeline for product requirements. Here it says except batteries. Batteries is a special case because battery regulation is going in parallel. So therefore the batteries are formally excluded by ESPR, but as we heard before, the battery passport will be also mandatory for Europe, and this is from the content it is aligned. In addition to the ESPR, we expect a growing number of other EU policies that will rely on the DPP, for example, battery regulation, as I mentioned, but also toys regulation or detergent regulation, construction product regulation, critical raw materials, and so on. So we expect that this will spread to further regulation. The DPP will simplify digital access to product-specific information, and it will therefore, in the ESPR, there are requirements on the data provision, complementing the physical eco-design requirements. And it's not a track and tracing tool, but if it is implemented accordingly, it can be used for that. And the DPP system shall build on existing best practices at international level. Basically, this means ideally it will be based on international standards. Again, a slide from EU Commission. EU Commission distinguishes between the so-called DPP system, shown on the left side, and the DPP's data, shown on the right side. The DPP system is the how. How is the information provided, and how can the user, the customer, or companies access to the DPP data? And this is also like a IT architecture. And this here in the ESPR, there are some basic requirements on this, but the detailed requirements will be described in standards. And for that, the European Commission has issued a so-called standardization request. And again, ideally, we can base this on international standards. So international standards can be developed and then finally can be used to fulfill European requirements. And if we achieve this, this would be a big step forwards for the international supply chains. On the right side, we see the what, the DPP data. So this is the question for which type of product category we need which type of information. For example, do we need for this clicking device, do we need the product carbon footprint, yes or no? Do we need information on the amount of recycled content, yes or no? This is a political decision and will be decided by the EU Commission. Here is an overview of different product categories which are under discussion right now. I have to say under discussion right now because it's not finally decided. We expect in the first batch of product categories, we expect energy-related products. We have also textile and footwear, but probably also iron and steel. It's not yet finally decided. Here it says the priority list is expected end of 2025. Just today I received a message that probably earlier, so in the second quarter of 2025 we will have a first list, but there was no chance to update the slide anymore. So, but still it's not finally decided, so unfortunately we have a kind of moving target problem. But what we can say is sooner or later all product categories will be affected by that. So maybe your company with your products is not affected in the first batch, but sooner or later it will be affected. On this slide, you see some requirements for the products coming directly from the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulations. Some of these requirements are directly related to the product, like durability, reusability, reliability, upgradability. So these are requirements on the product. Again, for example, here, this product has to fulfill this requirement, yes or no. Also presence of substances of concern and so on. If you go along the list, then you see some of the requirements for the product, but some are requirements to the provision of information on the product. For example, expected generation of waste material or environmental impact, including carbon and environmental footprint. So this is a requirement to provide information, and the tool to provide this information will be the digital product passport. Here is the timeline of the implementation. Again, as I said, the ESPR proposal was published in March 2022. And just a few weeks ago, the ESPR was adapted. It has the number 2024/1781. Maybe you cannot read the link, but it will be distributed under this link. You can download the ESPR text in different languages. European languages, I have to say, unfortunately. In parallel, the EU prepared a so-called standardization request. This is also published since a few weeks with the number M604, and it's also available on the homepage of the EU Commission. In order to fulfill the standardization request, the European Standardization Organization, CEN and CENELEC, have founded a Joint Technical Committee 24 for the DPP. This is a European Standardization Technical Committee. Nevertheless, the aim is to have it based on international standards because we are aware of the needs of global supply chains. And the last green arrow shows that we are not reinventing the wheel because we rely on standardization work on DPP in existing technical committees. For example, IEC TC 65 has done a lot on that. On the right side, again, you see the 8 categories of the requested standards according to the standardization request. Here on the bottom part, you see the life cycle of the product. Similar or very similar page was already shown in the presentations from Irie-san and from Thomas Hahn before. So this is the production life cycle from the raw materials until market placement and then repair, remanufacture, and recycle. If you look at the regulation, then you need the DPP from placing the product into the market. So the right side with the green text. For the left side, from a legal point of view, there is no need for a data space, but de facto you need a data space. So therefore, this is important to distinguish, to understand it. So upstream traceability is not the primary focus of DPP regulation, but the DPP concept should be able to cover these phases as well. So de facto, we need a data space. The alternative would be to send thousands of emails with Excel and PDF files, and that's no solution. That doesn't work. So we need a data space. But if you ask a lawyer or the EU government, they will say, no, from the regulation point of view, not needed, but from a business point of view, it is needed. So what we can say as key findings is the EU Digital Product Passport is a political concept and is decided, it will come, and it can be extended, and we expect it will be extended to further regulatory requirements, for example, such as quality infrastructure, so example for providing the certificates of conformance for a product. The DPP requires definition of what belongs into the product passport for certain product categories. As I said before, for this electronic device, it's a political decision whether you need product carbon footprint or amount of recycled material. So this is a political decision. Nevertheless, if the politics decides that you need product carbon footprint, we think this should, how to calculate the product carbon footprint and the semantics on that should be defined in international standards. Otherwise, again, we have a big problem for global trade. So that is important. So then number 4, the DPP should be standardized internationally to meet the requirements of global supply chains. And here I really appreciate the Japanese-German cooperation to get all the requirements also we have from your side. And the DPP system can be implemented with the Industrie 4.0 concepts, for example, using the asset administration shell. And we call this DPP 4.0. But these other approaches are possible, but that's our recommendation because if you use DPP 4.0, it fits to all the data space approaches discussed here today. And as I said before, de facto a data space is required to fulfill the regulatory requirements from the DPP. And international manufacturing X can pave the way for these internationally interoperable data spaces. What did we done in our standardization cooperation? We started with a mapping of the organization and initiatives involved in DPP in Europe and Japan. So this slide, it's already quite busy, but far from being complete, and we will further work on it. So we see here the different initiatives for data spaces and for DPP on a generic level and on a sector-specific level like batteries, electronics, and so on. And in our cooperation, we will further work on this, and hopefully we can publish this then as a mapping exercise. Also, we looked at the standardization activities here with a particular focus on Europe, because in Europe we have the concrete requirements on DPP. On the top level, again, you see the 8 sectors of the EU standardization request, and on the bottom part you see the other DPP-related standardization activities. With that, I hand over to Komoto-san. Thank you very much.
So first, let me follow up the explain situation in Japan toward the circular economy using digital technologies. First, in Japan, we have the basic act on establishing a sound material cycle society, and which was introduced in the year 2000 by the Ministry of Environment. Then, the Ministry has developed a series of fundamental plans for establishing a sound material cycle society, step by step. And recently, the latest version was released in September 2024. In parallel, in market in Japan, the Japan Partnership for Circular Economy was established in 2021 by the government, the Ministry of Environment and the METI, and Keidanren. And Keidanren is known as a Japanese business federation, a major economic organization in Japan. The purpose is to enhance or to strengthen the public-private partnerships and promote the circular economy among various stakeholders. Several private companies have already proposed the advanced circular economy cases focusing on the data platforms. But these cases have not yet addressed the standardization opportunities and recommendations for data models, like in case of digital product passports. So let's turn out our attention to the situation in the EU. So according to the SURPASS, which is the EU-funded collaborative initiative to promote standard-based DPPs, there are over 200 private and public initiatives related to digital product passports, some of which aim to provide product data-centric business solutions. Additionally, there are more than 300 existing and ongoing standards that are relevant to the organization and usage of DPPs, covering various categories, specifying functional requirements of DPPs and relevant systems. So let's imagine and let's consider the potential impacts of additional use case analysis focused on the usage of DPP and related standards. So first kind of impact is that such analysis, additional analysis of the use case can provide an overview and relevant standards organized by the function of DPP systems. This is particularly useful for DPP-related initiatives that are developing business solutions. Secondly, it can enhance the interoperability across various business solutions and the implementation of corresponding DPP systems. So based on this background, let me introduce the focus of the current activities in Japan-Germany collaboration. So this slide shows the distribution of the existing contributions by SURPASS, the European initiatives, in terms of documents which is organized according to the views with which the documents are written. So from the business, and the usage, and the functional, and the implementation. And it is also mapped according to the intended readers of the documents. Our current activities try to contribute to specific area by analyzing use cases and data models. I will explain the difference in the, but the use cases we study in this collaboration are different regarding the focus of activities in the product life cycle. But I will explain the difference in the following slides. And data models we study will be useful for application engineers for successful implementation. So this slide captures a use case about application of DPP for improving quality and transparency of the refurbishment processes of smartphones analyzed by Surface. That study presented the barriers for realizing such an application. So these barriers are derived, for instance, from the lack of the monitoring data of smartphones, lack of transparency on the refurbishment process, and so on. The latter barrier could be removed by locally providing information in the current stage, so refurbishment stage of the product life cycle. But the former barrier will remain unless we provide the information available unless we provide the product data across the product life cycle. So the focus of the analysis offered by Surface was typically on the downstream of the product life cycle, typically in the usage stage and the later stages of product life cycle. But instead, our collaboration activities will study the use cases for preparation and usage of DPP, focusing on the production activities and corresponding data models with DPP-related standards. So according to the interest of participants of these activities, standards to be studied may include those in various categories, such as unique identifiers, data carriers and links, and data processing and data exchange protocols and data formats. We will conduct this study through bilateral collaboration between Japan and Germany. So this is a tentative assignment of roles based on the expertise of the participants, but this can be changed flexibly. For instance, Japanese members contribute by studying production activities, specifically looking at the data attributes and the relationships that can help remove the barriers in downstream activities. Meanwhile, the German members focus on studying the interoperability between use cases at both production and downstream stages, ensuring seamless integration across different use cases. So in summary, interoperability related to the standardization of DPP-related data models may be useful for innovative business solutions. This is our aim. The Japan-Germany Standardization Expert Meeting currently studies, but not limited to, use cases of DPP and the corresponding data models in the production stage in context of the Japanese manufacturing industry. And as many speakers explained, DPP is one of the use cases for data spaces. So we are looking forward to the input, advice, and recommendations from you. Thank you very much for attention. And wir danken Ihnen für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. どうもありがとうございました。
Komoto-sama, Gayko-sama, ありがとう。
So, Mr. Komoto, Mr. Gayko, thank you very much. Now, we would like to have a report from industrial security experts. The title of the presentation is Trustworthiness of Supply Chain, Value Chain. We have Mr. Ogura from RRI Industrial Security Action Group, Hitachi, to start his presentation. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you. My name is Ogura from Hitachi Inc. I will talk about Industrial Security Action Group and also Eiji 3, PI 4.0. I want to discuss the collaboration between them. And as you can read from the title of the presentation, between Japan and Germany, we've had a lot of discussion. And that includes a large concept of security, that is trustworthiness. So we would like to introduce this trustworthiness as a concept. So Dr. Klasen, we were planning to have him with us today to present. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it for today. And yesterday I had a talk with him online, and he actually recorded his video presentation for this meeting. So please look at the video.
Hello, everybody. Many thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about our work regarding trustworthiness concepts for supply and value chain. My name is Wolfgang Klasen. I'm working for Siemens in Germany, and I'm engaged in the German platform Industrie for all. With me in this talk is Dr. Takashi Ogura-san. He's working with Hitachi and engaged in the Robot Revolution and Industrial IoT initiative in Japan. So what is our talk about? Agenda is about history and achievement in Robot Revolution initiative and Platform Industrie 4.0 cooperation. We introduce about current discussion topics with a focus on trustworthiness of data, and talk a little bit about our current work on next steps. So we had a fruitful cooperation since 2017. We were able to issue during this cooperation 7 different white papers, mainly at the occasion of an industrial fair at Hanover in Germany. In our white papers, we were talking about the role of trustworthiness in supply chain. We were talking about organization and products regarding trustworthiness. We are talking about trustworthiness attributes. And last but not least, this year, we went into the discussion of trustworthiness of data. So our discussion process was focusing the first time of establishing a framework for trustworthiness and using concepts like trustworthiness profiles between different stakeholders, where we exchange information regarding trustworthiness expectation and trustworthiness capabilities in such a profile container. We were also looking at different trustworthiness topologies in supply chain. Topology means the construction of trusted domains and how trusted domains have to interact with each other. And last but not least, we were enlarging our view in terms of trustworthiness for value chains and networks, not only for chains and supply chains, but also for value chains and networks, with at the end focusing on the data issue regarding trustworthiness. So when we talk about trustworthiness, we at least should have a good definition about trustworthiness. What do we understand on this word trustworthiness? We were looking at existing standardization work in ISO IEC JTC1, Working Group 13, which is now establishing a standard which is called 31303, Trustworthiness Overview and Concepts. The standard exists in a working draft, and it defines trustworthiness as the ability to meet stakeholders' expectation in a verifiable way. So important is, and we are referencing here the notes of this definition in 31303, that different trustworthiness characteristics apply and need verification to ensure the stakeholders' expectations. And these characteristics can be reliability, availability. You see here the list. This is not meant to be complete, but part of the list is resilience, security, privacy, safety, accountability. Very important for us also integrity and authenticity. And this is why we say trustworthiness is on top of security. That is a more general approach than just security. And in terms of security, where we come from, there is a double role, a double relationship between trustworthiness. First of all, we need trustworthiness concepts to signal security properties along the supply chain. And second, we need security mechanisms to secure the signaling of security properties along the supply chain, with trustworthiness properties along the supply chain against attacks from the outside. So a double sense of relation between security and trustworthiness, and that's of course a very interesting point for our work. Then I want to point out here, trustworthiness is also very important in the context of governance, and under governance we want to understand these are the rules which ensure the accountability, the transparency and the fairness of organizations. And when we say organizations, this also applies to ecosystems like data spaces between different nations and in a global environment. Here we will need a governance which is applied to such an ecosystem, and this gives us the rules which assure the correct and reliability dealing with trustworthiness and security concepts. Of course, measurability and demonstrability by means of objective evidence is very important when we talk about verifiability, and this applies to all trustworthiness concepts we want to apply in the future. So when we talk about security and trustworthiness in supply chains, we were looking at the existing standards like ISO IEC 28000 or 27000 series or 62443, and also anti-counterfeiting standards which come from ISO TC 292. And all these standards many standards already exist, but there is not a framework existing yet which provides assurance for multiple nodes in the supply chains, not only for one security domain or maybe, let's say, trustworthiness domain, which support automatic processing, which support interoperability and scalability, and of course, which help to preserve confidentiality and privacy along the supply chain in order to safeguard the business cases of the incorporated stakeholders of this supply chain processes. So we have to take into account different roles. We have to take take into account different competencies in the companies, in the stakeholders which are part of these activities, different responsibilities, and also different access rights to information about the involved product services and also data sets. We established such a framework and the discussion in the year 2023 in cooperation between Robot Revolution Initiative and Industrie 4.0. We introduced an approach to establish trustworthiness in a structured manner. Using the trustworthiness concept, we introduced different possible supply chain topologies, and we introduced how trustworthiness expectation and capabilities mechanisms are used to signal with properties to the specified partner along the supply chain. This work was fundamental for the development standard in ISO TC292, named 22373, with the title Framework for Establishing Trustworthy Supply Chain and Value Chains. So our work between Robot Revolution Initiative and Industrie 4.0 was very important for this activity, which is now in the state of this in ISO and will be published early next year. This activity was one of the recommendations which were written down in the standardization roadmap, Industrie 4.0, issued by German Dean in DKA, also issued in Japanese language, as you see here, and you can download this. These recommendations were very heavily influenced regarding the security of this security part of the recommendation, also from the cooperation between our two groups. And it's clear this roadmap gives recommendation not only on security, but on recommended and necessary standardization regarding Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing as such. And it's very important that it's realized when we want to have interoperability and multilateral data exchange for standardization of industrial security in this context, and also trustworthiness is inevitable for the success of these activities. Last not least, I want to point out the relationship to the digital product passport work, which is started now in European standardization body Scienceand JTC 24. This is standardization in regard to fulfill the European Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, short called ESPR. There exists a standardization request which has been adopted by Scienceand already. Security work was started in September this year, and the adoption for first products is planned for 2026. When we look at such a digital product passport, this passport will contain data and information about products and organizations which will be supported along supply chain. And this data need, of course, globally accepted proof of trustworthiness. This is very important, regardless whether it's just a European regulation or regulation from any other country, because we are on a global scale. We are working together in our supply chains. And so it's very important that we have international standards, internationally and globally accepted standards, which deliver trustworthiness and security for our processes along the supply chain. So thank you very much. And in this case, I will hand over to Ogura-san, who will talk about the second part of this presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Klasen. Now, let me skip what you've already seen. You have heard about the past activities and the outcome. Now, I, Ogura, will explain to you the current situation. What are the discussion topics that are being currently talked about? Now, this morning, you've already heard and you already know much of what is on the slide. But more recently, the manufacturing, production, and use from supply chain to recycling or remanufacturing included. Very broadly, the entire product cycle of a product is taken into consideration in certain business models and business activities. And we call them value chain. And the slide shows battery recycling as an example of a value chain. Within this value chain, you could have DPP or utilization of other data spaces so that the value you can obtain from the value chain can be maximized. Or maybe there's no data to begin with. Unless you have data, you will not be able to capture value out of this. So in the value chain, we like to achieve recycling economy, and we focus on data. In the past, products or organization had been the main play, and the discussion had mainly about the establishing trustworthiness of data and organization, but now we feel that trustworthiness of data is also necessary. That's why we have been having this discussion. Now the slide shows the definition of trustworthiness of data. The point I'd like you to focus is that we separate trust and trustworthiness. Trustworthiness has an extent or the scope, and on various perspectives, stakeholders are expectant from others, and how much can they respond to the expectations, how much you cannot respond to expectation. We are talking about the degree and the data products and organization. What will be the level of trustworthiness, or can trustworthiness be established or not? That's been the definition. On this trustworthiness, the expectations versus response to expectations. Trustworthiness expectation and trustworthiness capabilities is the topic. And based for data, what is available, what can be used, and what should be used. That is the nature of discussion we are having. Now, data trustworthiness, as you consider this, there are 2 points that we need to keep in mind. The first point, and for a product it could apply, but when it comes to data production, storage, and utilization of such data could be done by very different stakeholders. Even within a supply chain or value chain, these activities may take place in different sectors. Therefore, whether the data is trustworthy or not, its capabilities and expectations would include information as to where the data was generated, how it's used, how is it managed, was it appropriate. Those aspects will need to be confirmed. The slide shows the data being present at various different positions, locations, and an operator may want to use data about the residual electricity in a battery. If there is a battery by a manufacturer, you request manufacturer to and ask how is battery made. That information may be confirmed, and expectation is that you will be supplied with the data. But the bottom, the battery is the supplier, and the battery data the residual data is what they want to use and do business, whether that data is adequate or relevant, how was it obtained or produced, how was it transferred, how can the data be used. Those are the points that operator would like to confirm. So where is data, depending on where the data is held, the trustworthiness of data will need to be established, but the expectations to be confirmed would change depending on where the data is held. The second point I'd like to mention, rather than a product, when it comes to the data that could be that's transferred, frequently how the data is used, the producer or the original holder of the data would have expectations as to how the data will be used. So if you look at the left, we are showing you the example of a product. How will it be used? Requirement is issued, and if adequate requirement comes, you can trust the data. How is the data used? Is it adequate? For the provider's part, they do not want data to be used without any control. So for the data issuers, there are expectations or requirements rather that we'll need to keep in mind. So mutual expectations as well as capabilities will need to be exchanged. That's the characteristic aspect of data. Now, based on these 2 points, currently we are having a discussion. Well, we still have not reached an agreement between Japan and Germany, but these are the 7 perspectives where expectations and capabilities clarification or the clarification of concepts will be discussed in the future, especially concerning these 7 points, especially 5, 6, 7. These are based on the 2 points I just mentioned to you. Conclusion or summary, and what will be the next steps. IIoT supply chain, value chain, trustworthiness establishment has been the focus in collaboration between Japan and Germany since 2017. As for the framework to establish trustworthiness, we have been discussing, and the concept of trustworthiness is to be organization, product, and data. We have expanded the scope, and currently we're working on data. Our activities or our white paper is in accordance with ISO IEC, ISO IEC JTC1. We will comply or follow this in our activities. What will be the next steps? I'm repeating myself, but we are discussing further the establishment of trustworthiness concept for data, and including use cases. We'll have a very solid discussion so that in framework or something similar to framework is what we'll hope to establish. And the outcome we hope to be published at Hanover event. And we have been discussing data specifically. Your comments, opinions, collaboration on our activities is what we hope to receive, especially when it comes to data space. Those people who are interested in data space or who are already working on data space, for realization of data space, we are confident that you need such trustworthiness. So we are hoping to receive comments and opinions from you. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Uda. Now, Business Ecosystem Expert Forum member is giving us a presentation entitled Collaboration on Business Model. Our first, Dr. Shuhei Sugie, Chairman of Business Model Task Force RRI, Director of Open Innovation, and Professor Dr. Nils Medea, Platform Industry 4.0 Working Group 6, who will be joining us online. So Dr. Sugie and Dr. Medea. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm Sugie from Future Corporation. So we have two more presentations, and we have had a very long day, but I would like to give you a fun-packed presentation on business model. First, I would like to discuss the background on Japanese initiatives in this area, and Professor Madeha will take the second part. This initiative started just this year, so we are yet to arrive at a conclusive goal of our initiative. That is why we look forward to receiving your inputs and opinions, especially during the networking session that follows this symposium. First, why are we doing this at this point? There are a couple of background factors. Back in 2018, at an international symposium, Dr. Kagurman proposed our cooperation in promoting the B2B platform economy with a European and Japanese perspective, and that is how this initiative started. In 2021, we formulated a report, and after a period of hiatus, this initiative resumed at a full throttle this year. In 2018, sorry that this slide is a bit busy, value systems were evaluated. Red is the US situation, and blue representing Asian or Chinese market. SAP in Japan, and there isn't even a flag of Japan in this bubble chart. So this was the situation in 2018. And we really have to fill the gap. No matter how beautiful the product is, how widely the product is sold at a global level, digital giants are just monopolizing all the profits and the creams of the business. And all those giants are the ones who are having oligopolistic business model. And they are the ones who also have all the data. That is why we really had to seriously consider digital business model. And that is how we started our German-Japanese collaboration. This is the report formulated back in 2021 that can be downloaded from our site. And towards 2024, Japan also had some contemplation, which I would now like to introduce. So Dr. Kagurman made a proposal in 2018, and 22, 23, and 24, 3 projects have been driven, which is together providing the basis of our activity. As of 2022, the concept of death of competition, quarter a century ago, or more than 25 years ago, this was something that was presented, and we scrutinized this document as well. And why the death of competition happened. Business ecosystem was first referred to in this document, so we try to deeply understand this concept of death of competition. Up to that point, it was more like a competition between individual companies, but it has now become the period of ecosystems. I thought that this was a document that was so well written. One big lesson I found was summarized here there is a layer of business. Outside of it is the society, and outermost layer is environment. Different ecosystems are intertwining in this mass of layers, and that is what we call a business ecosystem. At different occasions at RRI, we also have scrutinized different layers of ecosystems to analyze the linkages between and among different factors. So that is what we have been doing at RRI. And another activity in 2022 at RRI was inter-academic collaboration. JSRP and we have been working together. Professor Takanashi of U Tokyo, JSRP's Dr. Onuma-san worked together. The focus of our work with Professor Takanashi is the value creation. New business digital model. What value does it present? So that was the discussion on the upside. And we have studied all those scenarios. At the bottom, the joint project with Mr. Onuma of JSRA are about the development of infrastructure or other fundamental issues from a viewpoint of business model. So these are the two areas of collaboration that we have pursued with academic partners. And these are also the areas that are thriving as well. Last year, business ecosystem in the area of digital was also the focus of our activity in 2023. In the era of digital, what is the innovation? Led by Dr. Mizukami, we have analyzed a business model, for example, of Uber Eats. One of the understanding is the standardization of interface facilitate business process collaboration, thereby dramatically changing a business model. And that was one of the major learning. And say, for example, there was a Uber Eats. There had been a food delivery system that preceded Uber Eats. You used to call a restaurant or stall, you place a phone call in a very analog manner, placing an order for your food delivery. That also means that you really have to know about the menu of the restaurant, and the restaurant needs to know where you live. And that is how the business transaction was ensured. But with Uber Eats, these kind of transactions were standardized, widening the options for consumers and also for the restaurants. So that was a digital-driven innovation that was made possible. Learning these positive impacts of business models, we started joint exploration, exploring new business opportunities. And that is the activities that have been pursued in Japan.
Explain Japan activity.
皆様こんばんは。
Hello, everyone. This is Niels Madea.
Here at the symposium, my name is Niels Madea. I feel honored to be here tonight, at least virtually. I would have loved to come in person, but unfortunately that was not possible. So it's my pleasure to give you a brief overview of the activity on the German side here, specifically the activities of our working group 6 of the National Platform Industrie 4.0, and also to share some thoughts about the future collaboration, as Sugie-san has pointed out. At the moment, we are at the stage of reviving our collaboration. Here, we've had discussions for about a year, and we are still thinking about the path forward. So, Sugie no slide on the Hi, thank you. So, okay, a brief overview of our working group and well, what is the purpose? What do we do? And how do we work? So as it says here, our mission is to rethink value creation specifically based on the principles and technical or technological concepts that the Industry 4.0 that it provides, and to lay out the potentials lay out the potentials and help create conditions to proliferate these concepts so that hopefully many players here in our economy can apply them and can profit from them. So the two questions that we are after in our working group generally are, first, how can Industry 4.0 concepts help or support existing business models, specifically when looking at the industrial sector, manufacturing and the like. So how can they support existing models, and how can they help create or generate additional or new business models, help to solve new sources to solve exploit new sources of value creation and transfer and monetization. And the way we work is typically we form, whenever we find existing topics to address, we form subgroups or sub-working groups in our working group, which has been the case recently or over the recent years, where we have formed 3 working groups, one focusing on the aspect of, or the specific aspect of sustainability, another one that took a look at the industrial metaverse, and next one that has been looking at value creation specifically in data spaces. In general, our working group comprises more than 60 members from various stakeholder groups, so from academia as myself, also from industry, from various associations, also labor unions and the like. We have I would say we represent a broad stakeholder base when looking at these topics. Okay, so having said that, I would like, to move on to the activities of our first subgroup, so to speak, that took a look at, or still taking a look at the concepts of Industry 4.0 and sustainability. Here we had, we looked at various aspects. First, what we did is we conducted a little study to investigate how digital business models, specifically those related to Industry 4.0 concepts, how they could impact sustainability goals or sustainable economic activities as a whole, from which the working paper you could see here resulted, that has been published, and if you want to, please take a look at it. And more recently, what we've been discussing for the last year or last 1.5 years was the aspect, how can companies, how can they organize their activities related to sustainability, and how specifically, where should they, so to speak, locate this responsibility for sustainability initiatives in the organization? And there we looked at various case studies, from different players in the industry, and came up with, well, I would say a variety of options where companies can locate that responsibility, within their organization, and we're still working on that. Next, please. So another subgroup, another subgroup has taken a look and studied the industrial metaverse. As you all know, the metaverse is a concept that has attracted quite a bit of attention in the consumer space. So we asked ourselves, well, what does this concept mean for industrial players? And how can they make use of it? I would say for serious purposes, for serving as a locus for conducting business. What can companies do there? And there we came up with a couple of use cases. We proposed a number of activities that could be, I would say, relocated into the virtual space of the metaverse. The results of this have also been published here in a working paper that's available for download. And actually, only very recently I learned that we want to continue our activities in this sector here and spend some more attention on this. Next, I would like to show you some thoughts. On the data spaces. Our subgroup on data spaces that have also been have also received quite a bit of attention, how they can be organized, data spaces as a concept. We've also heard quite a bit on them from previous presentations. And I think it's quite well understood how they can be organized. The sets of rules have been proposed for setting these up. Organizational concepts, ownership for them, control over them, and the like. Yet, the question that is still lingering there is, how can we make sure that companies actually make use of them? These are nice concepts, but they are of no use. They don't become effective unless many companies use them. And it is one thing to get larger players to become engaged in them, publish data, offer services, consume data from these kind of spaces. Yet, in our economy, as well as in your economy in Japan, the vast majority of companies are small and medium enterprises. And the big question is, okay, how can we get them to access the data space, embrace the concept, make use of them, also offer their data and consume them? What is in for them? What is in for them? And related to that, there have been a number of studies have been conducted on our side, and that also brings me to the next part of our presentation here. Based on that, we've had between our working groups here, on the Japanese side and the German side, we've had 4 or 5 rounds of discussion now, where we showed each other what we have been doing so far. And actually, what my personal impression is, what resonated quite well here was the aspect of bringing concepts like the data space to small and medium enterprises. And Sugie no slide only. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yes. And so where we found a big, I would say, area of common interest, and that is, okay, how can we go about I mean, how can we target small and medium enterprises and get them to embrace concepts, Industry 4.0 concepts, specifically the concept of data spaces. So what we are actually, and that is what we are actually thinking about right now, looking at, well, the large amount of companies that we have in either country, study how, to what extent they're already engaging in data spaces and what we can do to get them more engaged, and, so to speak, to scale data spaces across countries, especially across Germany and Japan, or Japan and Germany, despite the various differences that exist. And we also want to look at specifically at these differences and see, okay, what do we have in common, what is different, and how can we still scale data space, because our countries are in a quite similar situation, as we have learned. So this is what our thinking revolves around at this stage. And I hope that we can gather some valuable input here from the audience, also following our presentation here. Having said that, I would like to hand
thank you very much.
back over to-
それではですね、
So, from here onward, as Niels talked about that collaboration, he talked about the conclusion to conduct the collaborative research. So we do the research and we understand digital business model. But with that understanding alone, we will not be able to solve problems, to improve services, to satisfy all the consumers in the world. And that's the kind of world that we want to build. With that in mind, we do our research and we will identify challenges, and then we'll think about how we can respond to those challenges. And we want to do that with all of you. And data sovereignty, and as we discussed, DPP, these will be the essential foundation. On top of that, we have to consider the business model. So consider where we can collaborate. We want to find areas where we can collaborate effectively. Task force number 4 have multiple diverse members representing academia, who can contribute ideas, manufacturers, consultants, and we want to join forces of these different stakeholders and see the common area, this overlapped area, where we want to launch international joint programs involving all of you, of course, so that we'll be able to make progress in expanding our business activities. And starting point is the survey, the research we want to conduct, targeting all of you. So after this, the members are asked to participate in the survey, and we will share the results. So next year, when we have this symposium, we can share with you the outcome and plans for the future as well. So please look forward to that, and that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.
杉江様、丸谷先生、どうもありがとうございました。続きまして、産業データ連携専門家。
Next presentation is on the Robot Revolution and Industrial IoT International Symposium 2024. Mr. Ingo Sawela, Trump, MT, SE, and Professor Shinsuke Kondo. So floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, I'm Kondo from the University. Good afternoon. I'm Kondo from the University of Tokyo.
Ingo Savilla, till now 29 months at Trump as a research manager and responsible for head of manufacturing.
今日はですね、私たちの
Today, we would like to share with you on the topic of manufacturing data space as the booster, as a topic to share with you. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you today. We have started this activity last year, and I will briefly explain to you what we have done, and then talk about what data governance is. Then, what are the activities on data governance? What researches are taking place in Germany? Also, we will share with you the situation on data governance, the activities in Japan. And what we should do in the future will be presented in our summary. First, history. What have we done so far? In Germany and Japan, we have collaborations. It started last year. Now, concerning our data space, both in Japan and Germany, we have had certain activities which we have decided to share and then discuss and see what specifically we should do. That's what we have explained in the RRI Symposium 2023. So we gave you a preview as to what we would do, which was followed by the discussion within the team. And during the Hanover Fair this year, we published our discussion paper. If you have not seen the paper yet, this is going to be very helpful for you, so we hope that you will go through them. Now, within the discussion paper, first of all, we talk about the core aspects and design elements for manufacturing a data space. We mutually discussed and identified what would be the core aspects. For example, data integration and governance would be very important. We also thought that we cannot miss interoperability in the discussion. Just having raw data is not sufficient. Therefore, semantic understanding and ontology need to be linked with raw data. Also, data sovereignty and data security would be an important topic. Technology developed, therefore, along with the technological advancement, we have to have a good system, and that will evolve along with the development, and those will be the design elements and aspects. What is important here is that the data space will not progress if we only focus on technology. Data sovereignty, data security, and the mindset, which is the periphery of technology, will also need to be taken into consideration. Now, in Germany and Japan, we are to create data ecosystem. But first, we need to summarize what had been done in the past and what are the priorities. That's the summary in the publication. Today, we'd like to briefly talk about data governance. First of all, what should be the data spaces? What are the expected format of data spaces? It may not be consistent among different regions. The slide shows vertically and horizontally. Well, horizontally, you're looking at the function of database space, whether it's rich or very simple and minimal. Vertically, we are looking to see the participants in the data space and to what extent in data governance and management, data culture, are they ready? So the readiness is represented. If you're higher up, you are ready. Lower down below, you are not ready yet. So when you look at those dual axes, various applications and regions, depending on where you are, the position of your application would vary. It could be quite diverse within this space. For example, left bottom, written in red, it shows that participants are not ready yet. However, because of certain reasons, they must engage in these efforts. For example, the regulation may already be in place and they need to respond. In those cases, the participants may not be ready, but they must engage. So on the side of the system, although they may not be ready, they should be they should start to work. That means you have to give rich system. But further down in blue, there may be no regulations, or the function, the data space may not be rich yet. However, participants are very much interested in data governance and data culture and management, so they are ready. So when they're ready, like the management or data space applications may be offered. Within these 4 quadrants, what would be the data spaces required? What are the attributes of the data space? It would vary depending on where you are. In other words, data space would not be consistent depending on the applications or the regions. That format would vary. So there's no consistent data space. It could be a variant. And based on this concept, we would like to discuss what data governance would be. Now I'd like to ask Inge-san to tell you about the activities in Germany.
So before I start to talk about the activities on our German community, I will say a big thank you to Nakashima-san and his colleagues, to Professor Kondo in our collaboration meetings. And I will give a short inside view what my experience in this collaborating meeting is. So as I look back in the past, maybe we have several meetings, we talk together, and I look back, we were very serious, very formal, and we have a shy conversation about the thinkings. And after a while, we discussed about these things, what is the next step, and what is necessary to build up this infrastructure on manufacturing data spaces. We talk about, like Boris Otto explained in the morning, it's more than technical, it's about culture. And after a while, and that's what I experienced, so we get in trust, human to human, we get in trust together, and then we begin to laugh. We are not more serious and shy, we have trust each other. And so we talk about, and I ask the colleagues, also Nakashima-san, did you know about the quote from Peter Drucker, like culture eats strategy for breakfast? So it's a book, it's an idea. And we think about together, and so we talk, and if we retransform this quote, we come to the idea, maybe data culture eats data space for breakfast. And I extended, but with data governance, it tasted better. And then we laugh more, because the idea was not so bad. And so we learn together, it's not only a technical thing. The technical thing we can solve together, so we see trustworthiness, infrastructure, and some things. But we have also talk for the people to understand what's happened, because it's not a change. So we have not a change, and then after a while the old system will working. No, we have a really global transformation in a new area that we have to understand, and we have to learn it together. And as for my understanding and for our understanding, also we get new skills. We have to learn how to handle data, we have to find new roles, and we have to train our employees all over the world. And then we find out that data governance is an enabler for the data culture and to change. And that is what I say in the beginning. Then I talk a little bit about the activities in Germany. For the moment, you see here the most important data acts, or the European data acts, who are in force. They are in force. And now we have a little bit time, about 12 or 15 months, and then different regulations will be operational. So the organization have to learn a lot of how to implement in the processes, how to implement what is to interpret what the law is. And it's not only the Data Act, it's also the AI Act, it's the Cyber Resilience Act, it's the NIS2 Act, only in Europe. And as a global company, we have a lot of more regulations in the Asia room, in the American room, and so on. All the societies build up some regulations and to how to manage this data things. And for the company, it will be very hard because our business model is to build machines and to sell machines for our customers, not to fill out some reporting to some government things. But we have to do that. There's a chance also because we can now transform the organization in case of this kind of acts. And so that's a little conclusion about the perspective in this. So all of the enterprises have to understand the new regulation. So I have a lot of discussion with my colleagues. So how to interpret this text, how to do that in the implementation in the organizational processes. And it's a very hard discussions because you have to find out what means this. And we have also cybersecurity topics. So you see that in the Factory X product change notification use cases, and a lot of things are very new for us because we have to learn that, what means that, and to implement it. And we see also that the government have the same problem, like the industry, because the government have a different new laws also to implement it in their organization, and the colleagues from the government and the other side have also to think about how can we do that in our organization? How is the interaction with the industry? And till now we have some conflicts in the interpretation with these different kinds of laws, and we have to find out how to solve that. It's only in Europe. It's a very interesting thing, and this is a well-known picture. So it's a very interesting picture. Why? So if you started by Thomas Hahn, Klaus Otradowitz, and other guys, we invented this picture, and we have no idea what that in the future brings. But in this picture, I take a lot of explanation. How can we develop some kinds of question in this? So, and there's also, if you look at the border side, the regulation framework, we have an abstractic layer here, and you can use this picture all over the world because regulation is all over the world. And so we can find out which standards come together. And other good thing is that we find out that the projects like the Factory X or the Catena X project will be interacted with the regulation. So, and here we can start a discussion all over the world with this picture. So, and why we need a Manufacturing X guidance board? It's only necessary to synchronize all the German Factory X or X projects, because each of the projects have some questions of data governance and data assets. And we have to find out how can we manage that in a similar way. And we have to check out the in-house data catalogs, and a lot of each of the companies will do that or have to do that. And each of the companies find individual solutions for that. And we have to synchronize these individual solutions to get a speed on the track. That's a very interesting thing. And as I said, data governance is an enabler for it, because data governance focused on the data as an asset. And we have to define some data governance rules. And what's happened in Factory X, so we stay with a lot of companies inside the consortia. And after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the colleagues come and said, oh, how can we manage the data in our synchronized project? And then we said, okay, we have some guidelines, like this data is understood as a value. And there's a clear responsibility for the data. And such kinds of rules we defined at the moment. It's ongoing. But as a result of this ongoing discussion, we will get data governance guidelines. And that's a good thing because we can collaborate in these points. Maybe we find different kinds of other questions, but in the Zoom, we have maybe an international data governance guideline. And this will be accepted in the whole industry, and that's an important thing. And at last, we have seen some kinds of presentation about trustworthiness data. I have made also a very, very, very simple example what could be happened in the future. What could be happened in the future? So you see here also the process, and I have I said, okay, there's a mining to get raw materials, a company A. We have some intermediate products, for example, a battery, company B, and we have a manufacturing company who supplied from company B some kinds of batteries and so on and so on. And then we have a customer, they used this battery, and at the end we have a recycling company who recycled the battery. And we're thinking in our project about data governance and also with the DPP, for example, which kind of data have which classification. So classification of data become maybe in future very important because we have to find out which kind of data are restricted, which are trusted, and which are published. And here as example, if the company A have a raw material like cobalt, and they wouldn't talk about, so we have a restricted thing. If a company B used this material, he has no idea about this raw material cobalt, for example, because he produced batteries for that. And what did the engineering do? They make some specifications about their product. They said, okay, my battery will be 1,000 charging cycles. That's my specification. And the supplier, the manufacturer, take this battery in his product, and he needed the specification, and he know, okay, this battery had 1,000 charging cycles. And if the manufacturer bring this battery in, for example, a car, he make other specifications because the car said, okay, my battery has only 300 charging cycles, but the battery has possibly 1,000 charging cycles, but the customer didn't know that. And then we bring this to the customer, they use it, and they count the cycles. So they know, the customer know, okay, I have only 300 cycles, and actually has 58 cycles, and so on and so on. It's very clear that we have to think about what's happened with the data, what is published, what is trusted, what was restricted for the IP. At the end, so I'm not a good PowerPoint designer, at the end, we have to bring up this process in a circle. Because what's happened, if the company E have the specification and the actual value of the battery charging cycle, he recycle the battery and get cobalt as a restricted data. And what's happened if he know the recycling thing and could be make an offer to the battery company who built the battery. So the battery company has then the situations, oh, I have a mining company and I have a recycling company. What can I do? What can I change and what can I talk about? And that's a very deep impact in the simple example. Why is it necessary to make a data classification in the future and to bring out this kind of data governance we developed at the moment? So I give hand over to Professor Kwanzaa.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so
Okay, allow me to speak in Japanese about the activities in Japan. Today I will be discussing briefly government organizations' official data governance related documents. I will start with official documents by the government and then suggest what is lacking in these documents. Official government documents, there are 3 kinds of them, and these are the hard copies of each. It is very thin, meaning that it is not yet substantively rich. There still remains lots of flexibility, but this can be the baseline of data governance as presented by the Japanese government. Let me first tell you what is written in these documents. First, METI has formulated the Digital Governance Code 3.0. This document gives a demarcation of the requirements in trying to achieve digital governance. On the right are the 3 visions and 5 pillars from bullet 1 to 5. So 3 viewpoints includes the linkage of management vision and DX strategy. And you really have to quantify and review as is situation and to be situation. And third vantage point is the need to embed these goals in corporate culture. And 5 are the requirements required of businesses. Management vision and business model first needs to be formulated. And based on these, the strategy needs to be formulated. And in promoting the strategy, performance needs to be assessed by using indicators to measure the DX strategy is leading to a positive outcome. So that is the gist of this document. So I wouldn't go into the details of this, but what needs to be done is listed under the Digital Governance Code. In this document also have created a system to give a certificate for companies that meets all these requirements. The second document is Data Management Handbook for Corporate Executives. As written on this slide, data-driven management requires the executives to know certain things, and that is summarized in this booklet. So what steps to be taken in which sequence can be found in this book. Preparation stage would include such steps as the understanding of the corporate executives to understand the importance of the information and data literacy and other data-related capabilities to be enhanced. At the same time, creating a catalog of data. And data policy needs to be formulated so that data can be collected based on the policy for better utilization. And the third document is more specific than the second. It is Chief Data Officer Handbook as to what is required for CDO and what values can be brought in if you install a CDO. In this booklet, you can find data-based decision-making from the top to bottom of an organization. And that should be embedded as part of corporate credo and culture. Chief Data Officer, if he or she fulfills such a responsibility, what can be achieved? So the benefits of having a CDO is summarized in this booklet. So CDO needs to deliver substantive information. At the same time, technological social changes are grasped so that needed responses can be made. Digital transformation based on data. These are the benefits that can be achieved by having a CDO. So we have such documents provided by the government. But now, suppose that you're in charge of implementing a DPP. Can you really achieve that? As Ingo mentioned, Reading it and doing it are two different things. Component data, for example, where should I keep such data in my system? And how can I ensure that the information I have is trustworthy? How can we verify the trustworthiness? Suppose that you need to calculate exact energy consumption. What calculation or formulation can we use? These questions are often difficult to be answered. So you really have to have a reference use case for you to achieve all these tasks.
Very fast. Actually, we have to adapt the structure, the architecture, the processes for the new circumstances. Organizations are at the moment very busy to adapt all the kinds of stuff we talk about. And as Professor Kondersan talk about, we have to find out which information in which infrastructure we have to handle. That's the thing. So as Sebastian Schneider said, participate, participate, participate. So feel free, and here's the invitation. We have to come in the dialogue to get it more faster. Thank you very much.
Professor Kondo, Mr. Savila, thank you so much. So with that, we would like to conclude session 3. Please give another warm round of applause to all the speakers and panelists. Again, this concludes the lectures, and this also ends RRI International Symposium 2024. I'd like to thank all the sponsors for your support to make this symposium possible. Online participants, thank you for joining us today.